Binging with Babish and bingingwithbabish.com are brought to you by Squarespace. Head there now to check out all of the recipes from the show, kitchen equipment lists, and more. Get 10% off your first Squarespace order by visiting squarespace.com/babish. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business.
Like who would have thought that once again, in your hour of need, that you would turn to us, you know?
Not me.
Help yourself.
Hey, what's up with the fancy pastry? We gotta keep the food budget down.
Well, what are we supposed to have for breakfast?
The oatmeal packets.
Oatmeal packets.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're taking a look at the fancy pastry from Ant Man and the Wasp, which of course is just an Entenmann's raspberry Danish twist. Now, I am of course living on Earth with a heart and the intelligence of a human being, so I love Entenmann's. After all, it's basically just sugar that you can chew. But as I'm sure any Dane will tell you, it's a pretty far cry from Danish pastry. It is very soft, it is extraordinarily sweet, and it's got streusel on it for some reason. And again, it's delicious, so I don't really feel a need to improve upon it, and I will freely admit that this episode was just an excuse to surprise my girlfriend Jess with her favorite pastry, raspberry Danish. But I think I'm allowed to do that every once in a while, so let's dig in. The first thing we're going to need is very high quality and very French butter. You ideally want to use French butter because it actually has a higher melting point than other butters. We're following a recipe from King Arthur flour, so into the bowl of a stand mixer goes 659 grams of all-purpose flour, which of our 450 grams of unsalted butter, we're going to grab about 30 grams or 2 tablespoons worth and work it into the flour with our fingers like we're making a pie dough. This apparently coats the flour with a bit of fat, making the pastry more tender, but I don't know if that's true. We're also adding 67 grams of sugar and 12 grams of instant yeast, tiny whisking until homogeneous, and then it's time to add the wet stuff. 75 milliliters or about a third of a cup of lukewarm water and 230 milliliters of refrigerator cold full fat milk. We're also adding about 3 grams or 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 2 large eggs, because Danish pastry is very similar to croissant, but instead of a lean dough, it's a very soft and enriched dough, which makes it a lot more forgiving. Anyway, we're mixing that together with 15 grams of kosher salt and mixing until just combined and no dry spots remain, about 2 minutes. What will result is a very sticky dough that we're going to cover and let rest whilst we prepare our butter squares. You heard me right, butter squares, not square. On 2 sheets of parchment paper, we are placing the remaining halves of our 450 grams of butter and using a rolling pin and our repressed rage, pounding out to a thickness of about 1 or 2 centimeters. Then we're opening up the parchment paper, folding the butter in half, reflouring as necessary, and pounding out again, a sum total of 4 times, or until the butter has the consistency and rigidity of Play-Doh. That is, you can almost bend it entirely in half without it breaking. Rinse and repeat with the other half of the butter, and there you have it, our 2 butter rectangles, which we're going to set aside while we generously flour our countertop, turn out our enriched yeasted dough, use a bench scraper to coax it into a rectangle roughly the same size as our butter rectangle, and roll it out to about 3 times its width and a few centimeters taller so it can perfectly envelop the butter. The first slab of which we're going to place in the center of the dough and then fold one side over it, making sure to drape and not stretch. Then we're going to lay the second butter rectangle atop of that and give everybody a thorough dusting to make sure that there's no excess flour, because as we fold the remaining third of the dough over the butter, we want everything to stick together, which we will emphasize by pinching the edges shut. And there you have it, pastry with 2 layers of butter. But now we are going to perform the task of laminating, that is, rolling the dough out to about the same width and height that it was before, once again brushing off any excess flour and folding once again into thirds like a pamphlet, a pastry pamphlet for pastry pundits. Had to pull out the thesaurus for that one. And just like that, we've got 6 layers of butter. But we're not done. We're going to wrap in plastic wrap and fridge for 20 minutes before unwrapping and rolling out once again, folding into thirds and rolling out one more time. So hang on, that's 6 times 3 times 3. Let me just do the math real quick. My calculator tells me that that's 54 layers of butter, which we're going to wrap in plastic and let rest in the fridge for anywhere from 4 to 16 hours, before cutting into our desired portions and rolling out for final assembly, which in our first attempt to sort of recreate the Entenmann's vibe, we're going to cut into a rectangle. I want to imitate the Entenmann's dimensions as best as I can, that's a tongue twister, so I'm going to measure out a rectangle about 13 by 6 6 inches because I anticipate it shrinking about an inch in each direction when baked. Then I'm cutting out 3 1-inch wide strips, brushing off any excess flour, brushing my strips down with a beaten egg, and laying 1 strip in the middle of the rectangle with 2 strips flanking it on each side. This I hope is going to give us the 2 sort of raspberry canals that you get with the Entenmann's Danish twist. Then we're going to place this on a rim baking sheet and cover with greased plastic wrap to proof for 1 hour. To make our cheese filling, we're combining 100 grams each cream cheese and ricotta, along with 1 whole egg. I'm just kidding. Remove the egg from its shell, 35 grams of sugar, and a generous pinch of kosher salt. Sorry, Tiny Whisk, this is not a job for you. Now you could easily whisk this together in a stand mixer, but I was feeling that special kind of lazy where doing the hard thing somehow feels easier than getting the thing out to do the easy thing. Then we are retrieving our proven pastry and piping into the channels both our cheese mixture and some raspberry jam. And in this case, it's better to opt for store-bought raspberry jam. I tried making my own and it's too runny. Brush the whole thing down with a beaten egg and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 18 minutes. And do not bake it on the top rack or you're going to get this weird dappling instead of the nice even browning that you're after. But it's still totally edible, so we're going to make a glaze out of a big pile of confectioner sugar mixed with just a little bit of skim milk so it doesn't end up too runny like, you know, this one is. Then I'm attempting to imitate Entenmann's weird glaze pattern. It's kind of like a rainbow shape, and I'm slicing and serving. And I gotta say, this is just not doing it for me. It's totally delicious, but I think this shape was developed for factory optimization and there's no artistry in it. And Danishes are an opportunity for prettily patterned pastry. So let's roll out another half batch of dough to a thickness of about 1 centimeter and take a crack at the ever popular Danish braid. This involves trimming your dough into a rectangle and then placing diagonal cuts down the sides of the pastry, about 2 centimeters wide, and leaving a gap in the center of the pastry about the same width as the length of the strips. Did that make any sense? No? Well, just make it look like a Christmas tree. Then we are piping our cheese mixture and raspberry jam down that center strip, folding the top of the tree down over the filling, and then interleaving the branches, that is, folding them over on a diagonal over the filling, alternating left to right, creating the picturesque pattern known as the Danish braid. Tuck the bottom flap under the last 2 strips, cover with greased plastic wrap, and prove for 1 hour. Now, like I said, you don't generally want to use homemade jam. I did, and I experienced some leakage, but no biggie. Brush down with a beaten egg and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 18 minutes, this time on the middle rack, so you get that perfectly golden brown pastry that will haunt your dreams when you're at a gas station and you want breakfast. Once completely cooled on a wire rack, drizzle with your glaze, slice, and serve. And I gotta say, as far as elongated, sliceable pastries for a crowd go, this is the one you want. But if you really want to explore just how pretty Danish pastry can be, you need only roll it out and slice it into even squares. And upon these squares you shall build your church. For my favorite pattern, simply fold in half diagonally and place 2 cuts down the sides of the pastry, leaving a gap at the end. Brush off any excess flour, separate the 2 flaps you've now created on each side, and fold them over each other to make the Danish known as, I don't know what it's called. Let's call it the pointy twisty, which when you actually make it, you're gonna first want to brush down with a beaten egg, both for color and so everybody sticks to everybody. Next up, what I can only imagine is called the pinwheel. Place 4 cuts from each corner, leaving a gap in the center, brush down with beaten egg, and fold half of each triangle towards the center in an alternating fashion so that it forms a pinwheel. Next up, a rather complicated one that has a big payoff. We're going to place 90-degree cuts in each corner of the pastry, leaving a gap between them. Brush down with beaten egg yolk and fold the now loosened corners towards the center of the pastry, creating what I'm going to call the corner cut crazy carnation. Then the easiest of all the shapes, basically just brush the thing down with egg yolk and fold each facet of the square towards the center to create what I call the lazy crumple do. Next, we can actually make a miniature version of our Danish braid. Basically just do everything I said before, but in a smaller way. Pipe the first stuff, pipe the other stuff, brushy brush with beaten egg, and foldy fold until everything's ensconced in an elegant eclair. And then last but not least, the one that I wish that I didn't do on camera because it kind of exploded, just brush down one side of the square and fold it on top of itself, like an open-ended Danish burrito. Then we are filling our as yet unfilled pastries with dollops of cheese and raspberry jam, and as usual baking at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 18 minutes, until golden brown, puffed, and picture perfect, except for, This guy, who I warned you about. I told you he's a troublemaker. But everybody else is looking pretty damn nice. To ensure crispness, we are cooling completely on a wire rack and then drizzling with our slightly thicker drizzle. Otherwise it just kind of disappears into the pastry, and then finally we're digging in. And I think this is the way to do Danish. Not only is it pretty, but it's smaller, so it's able to puff up more, and the pastry is able to bake more evenly. It's somewhere between croissant and brioche. It is jammy, cheesy, and just the right amount of sweet. And it's a member of the Clean Jess Club. This episode and many others have been sponsored by Squarespace because they've been an amazing partner in both bringing this show and my websites to life. They've got a really intuitive, easy-to-use platform that made it super easy for someone like me who's never done web design, ever. They have templates, they do domains, they have really good customer service. It's basically a one-stop shop for building a really slick website. If you want to try it for yourself, you can start your free trial today by visiting squarespace.com/Babish to get 10% off your first purchase.